Hey, I'm Azure. Before I get started, a link to the uncommented version of this video without the breaks will be in the description. So first off, this run uses the JP opener, as named in the Balance Discord, linked in the description as well. It requires an ungodly amount of spell speed in order to actually use the second Thunder proc in time. Currently the max spell speed, with 470 gear and Pickled Herring, is 3591, and I would not recommend going any lower than that. The JP opener causes many procs and movement sections to line up well for this fight, so I would recommend it if you can do it. As an initial example of convenient procs, we have a Sharp Thunder proc from the opener to throw on the hand instantly, which then gives us a guaranteed Thunder proc on Living Liquid later that lets us weave Mana Ward and move for adds. The Jagd Dolls will always be complete in either 3 Fire 4s or 3 Fire 4s and a Blizzard 4, depending on direct hits and crits. You may be able to get away with the Blizzard 3 instead of a Blizzard 4, which does 7% on a normal hit, the Blizzard 3 that is, but the Blizzard 4 will always work out if you're not below 25% yet. Whether you get a Fire proc here partially determines how the rest of the fight's going to go for you, which I'll bring up later. As a side note, if I have neither proc to move with, then I'll often cut the Thundercast here to feed the ad and return to fire, making sure I have full mana before doing so. For the upcoming Protean 1, I use a guaranteed Fire proc, or a Thunder proc if I happen to have it, to move and start triple cast. This guarantees a swift cast Flare unless I had a Fire proc during adds and didn't get a Thunder proc after adds. If both of those do happen, I will not be able to swift cast the Flare. However, since Flare is only a 36 potency increase over Despair on 2 targets, it's just not worth hard casting Flare or hard casting the swift cast in order to Flare. So if that happens, just despair about your proc lock. Regarding Addle, somewhat rarely your OGCD space doesn't line up to Addle after the first or second splash, so you have to choose whether to hit the splashes or the cascade. Communicate with your healers, of course, to see which they prefer you do when this happens. Interestingly, if you're pushing through the final hand of pain, as my group does, this will be the only foul of the entire phase. All your other polyglot stacks you use will be spent on Xenoglossy. For safety though, I would recommend switching the Blizzard 4 and the foul from what I do in the video here. After slide casting to one of the designated bait spots, the Sharp Fire after second cascade will be used to guarantee movement for Protean 2. If you decide to use ley lines here, pre-placing them in the final position is probably best. If burning Living Liquid before the final hand of pain, once you get to your puddle spot, you can start ignoring the hand completely. The Fire 4 I'm about to cast here is actually completely wasted since Hand of Pain will finish before I finish that cast. Fortunately, moving in for Protean 2 coincides with the start of burning living liquid, so a Xeno for movement is well spent moving in. From here, Blizzard 4 is worthless because the fight just does not last long enough, and Thunder has been worthless for quite a while. As such, I'll use one Xeno and Ice here as the filler spell before turning to a quick fire phase. I will normally get somewhere between 0 and 2 fire 4s depending on earlier proc luck, with 4 and earlier than normal to spare. Finally, I can then use a last second Xeno if needed to push. Hopefully, I don't need to spend it so that I can start out phase 2 with 2 fouls ready to go, but group DPS does vary. If you have any questions, comments, or improvements, feel free to mention them below, and thanks for watching.